Hello, everyone. I'm Christopher, and I use ze, them, and he, him pronouns.
And I'm Judah. I use they, them.
And I'm Jake Yu. You can use she, her pronouns for me.
And today we're talking all about queer media and representation. See, I sucked. See, look what just happened. For a second time. Last week, and I'll probably insert B-roll from our mishap.
And we can make new merch about it.
Christopher sucks. That's the merch. The last 10 minutes have been spent fixing technical difficulties that are inevitably somehow cosmically my fault, so I apologize to everybody. But last week, we talked about Hentified, The Walking Dead, Skyrim, Sims 4, Harry Potter, Euphoria, and The Last of Us. But in that conversation, we realized, oh my god, there's so much to talk about and so many examples that we've decided to have an episode 2. So, who wants to go first? We've got categories of good, bad, complicated, and our favorite headcanons also. So whoever is most passionate, you can go first, JQ or Judah.
So I've been binging that 70s show for a bit now, because it's okay as a sitcom. It's very heterosexual. That's fine. No big deal. But there was an episode that featured a gay character.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I didn't know there were any gay people on the 70s show.
We're gonna start with the bad because I need to get this off my chest. I was like so like, oh my god. Keep in mind the show was written in the 2000s. Unfortunately, the 2000s were not the best or the kindest to queer people. But in this episode, Eric makes friends with somebody in his chemistry class who's asking him for the answers and all that. And there's this montage of them doing all these things together, like they're friends, and then they're in the car together. And they're just like chilling there, like talking. And then the friend leans in for a kiss. And Eric is like, no, I'm not gay. And it's like played for laughs.
Uh-huh.
And I just think like, what is going, like, it was such like a weird whiplash, mostly because it was not necessary, in my opinion.
To have his friend think that he's interested in him and like a weird awkward kiss scene.
It was like a weird awkward kiss scene that was even made more awkward because the joke is literally like, he's gay. Like that was like the running joke of the entire episode.
Knee slapper.
Yeah.
True knee slapper.
Total knee slapper. And like, I don't know. I think we've moved beyond he's gay is like a punchline.
Halfway.
When did that show come out? It came out in like the 2000s? 2005. Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind too, the setting is like the 1970s.
Yeah. But still, you didn't have to include it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's only in like, is he a recurring character or he's
not.
just...
You've never seen him again.
Wow, they really went, we will have a gay episode. It will be the worst.
We'll have a single gay episode and a single gay character, and that will set us up forever.
And I only mentioned that 70s show because Netflix just came out with a spinoff series,
that 90s show, yeah.
And I'm pissed that none of the characters... Well, there's one character who's gay on that show, and they don't actually play it for laughs. They actually do a really nice coming out scene with his character. Sorry, spoilers. Oops. They do a really nice, coming out scene with his character. It's not so bad. I think it's the writers trying to redeem themselves from the 2000s. But there's another character that I'm kind of upset isn't gay. I was like kind of disappointed.
Interesting.
I get disappointed now. I'm just like, aw.
Did it feel like they were going to be, or that there was like a chemistry
really
with another
like,
character?
Yeah, like she has really good chemistry. So the main character is Eric's daughter. I can't remember her name.
Oh, it's like the iCarly thing where they're aged up.
Yeah. No. Well, the parents are aged up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the original characters all aged up, with the exception of Hyde, because his actor is like in trial right now with a whole lot of like, it's like a Jehovah's Witness. It's like whole thing.
Jeez.
Okay.
It is like, that's like another like rabbit hole. So his actor is not going to be coming back to this night. I think everyone else is except for him, because he's going through this court case right now. All that said, there's another character in that show who I think is implied to be his daughter. but I can't really make any assumptions there. And I really thought that Eric's daughter, and who I think is Hyde's daughter, was gonna hit it off and be two queer characters. They're not.
Tragic.
I was like, this is, and they're making her have chemistry with I can't remember his name either. Ashton Kutcher's character has a son.
Oh, I'm like, Ashton Kutcher, isn't he like 50 now?
Yeah.
Jesus. Oh no.
They have a son, and they're making them, like, they're pairing them together, and I was like really disappointed. I was like,
Tragic. Ugh.
oh man. But I mean, yeah, they do that nice coming out scene with one of the characters in that 90s show. It's pretty simple, straightforward. It's nothing too like. I'm actually like really like happy that it didn't make it so like
Like a
hard.
big deal.
Yeah, like they didn't make it so like difficult. I feel like so many like in the name of art, a lot of things that contain, or a lot of media that contains queer people make coming out scenes like awful.
Yeah.
Like it, like they come out and all of a sudden like the world is ending.
Yeah.
Like so, but it was nice to see like in that 90s show that this character can come out and it's not seen as like a big deal.
Mhm.
It's very like, and I don't know if that was like true in the 90s. I really doubt it was.
Yeah,
for a
it's
lot of
probably-
people.
But you know,
But it's
make
still
it nice.
It's a nice thing to imagine.
Yeah.
That this like gay kid is like, hey, I'm gay, and it's taken very like, okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're like in the writer's room when they're making this sequel, they're like, okay, remember that one episode where we had him try to kiss Eric? I think we need to make up for it. Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. We'll throw the gays a
We'll
little
put like one good
little
scene in.
crumb.
One good scene and then we'll make the lesbian not a lesbian.
No, because okay, not to like stereotype. I think it's horrible, but I think that if you have a lot of like niche interests, come on.
That interesting. If you have this is a true fact. They've actually tested this. If you have niche interests, you are gay. You are now gay.
If you're not like other girls, it's because you're gay.
It's because you're gay. And in my case, it's because I'm a man. So that happens also. But yeah, that 70s show. Terrible scene, but a hopeful future,
Yeah.
I would say. An example I wanted to talk about, Emma, who's one of our writers, actually recommended this. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh yeah. Bodies, 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 which came out last year. I won't spoil the movie or anything because I think it's worth watching. But it opens with like a minute-long makeout session between the two lesbian main characters. Have you seen it, Judah?
I have not seen it. The
But-
only reason I heard about it was because one of the actresses or actors.
Oh, the Amanda Stanberg
yeah,
thing with
Amanda
the oh my
Stanberg
god.
thing happened, and that's the only reason I heard about this movie was because of that whole like TikTok debacle.
Yeah, there was
I
this.
was like, oh,
For people who don't know, there was this critic, I think, for the New York Times who wrote an article about said that the movie was an 80-minute advertisement for cleavage, and the actress Amanda Stanberg, who actually played Rue in the Hunger Games, I found out.
yeah.
Also has very cool. She just looks so cool in the movie. She's gorgeous. But she messaged this woman. I think Lena is her name, and she said maybe you would have enjoyed the movie if you weren't staring at my boobs the whole time. And then there was like this whole thing about how the critic was devastated to have received this message. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have said that you were staring at all the characters' boobs the whole time. And she wouldn't have said that. Like, this whole thing. But in the actual movie, so there's like, I like it's, so the whole thing is like a satire on Gen Z, but like
Mhm.
the script was majorly influenced by all the actors who are Gen Z. So it feels very accurate. It's very like a privileged group of like rich Gen Z kids. They're having a hurricane party at like this mansion in the middle of nowhere. They do like a shit ton of drugs, and like the main character, Sophie, who is played by Amanda Stanberg, is a recovering addict. So it's like this whole storyline of like being enabled, and like there's a murder mystery and all this stuff, and like is there like a cheating thing going on between like Sophie and her girlfriend B, and like the ex-girlfriend is there. It's like there's a lot going on, but it never feels like weird that the two of them are gay. Like there's the I was unsure why they had the makeout scene, because when the movie opened, I was like, damn, this is going on for a long time. Like this is a very long, and it was like just two people kissing, and like, you know, she brings her hand down at one point, and then like the movie continues on, and like it's just like a, you know, people making out because they're in a relationship. But it's also like, why did they include this at the beginning of this horror movie? Like, what's the thematic reason they included it? But like it was fine. But yeah, like they don't treat, you know, the lesbian characters any differently. There's a cheating scandal that's like just as dramatic as it would be if it was a straight couple, and like everyone is a very unique brand of like obnoxious and privileged, and that's why the movie is so fun. But I would say that's an example of good representation, in my opinion, because they're just allowed to exist. And there's this quote by Chelsea Rebecca, who's like a horror podcaster. She's like, we have made it in movies when women can make shit movies and still be allowed to make more shit like men are. And that makes me think of this movie where like these lesbians can be shit people and turn on each other in like an emergency, and they're still allowed to be lesbians. You know, it's like not a reflection on that part of them. So yeah, I like that movie. It's a good one. Pete Davidson's in it. He's hilarious.
He is? What?
He is. Yeah, not for long, as you'll find out.
That's
Fair.
nice.
But it's good.
So I feel like I shouldn't be like, that's nice that he's not in it for that long.
That's nice. He's only in it for, yeah, but he's like her rich. I mean, they're all rich, but he's like known her, Sophie, since they were little, and both of their parents are like old money rich. So have you heard the TikTok trend of like, Jordan, your parents are upper middle class? Have you heard that TikTok
I have
sound?
not.
Oh my God, it's so funny. But it's like they're one of the other queer person in the group, Jordan, who was Sophie's ex-girlfriend. They were like turning on each other near the end of the movie, and she's like, you have this whole rags to riches story about how you grew up from nothing. Your parents were upper middle class. And
so
she's
real.
like, no, they're not. And then the other girl goes, yeah, they teach at a university. And the other girl goes, it's public. Like it's so funny. Very funny movie. But anyways, yeah. JQ, do you want to give one of
I
your
figure-
examples?
We've done a bad one. We've done a good one. I am going to talk about my headcanon one, which honestly, I feel like in some ways it is so supported by the text that, like, is it really a headcanon? Maybe Terry Pratchett just didn't know the word transgender. That's right. I'm talking about Monstrous Regiment, the Discworld book. So the general plot, because I'm assuming neither of you have read this book from like 2003.
Super niche fact about me, you totally wouldn't know. I don't read books. So please go on.
Super niche fact about me. We wrote down some examples before this that we're going to talk about, and 3 of mine are books. and
Yeah,
the
I
other
was
one
like,
is a game with a lot of reading.
How do I include this in the thumbnail? These are books. But yeah, continue.
Nope. Just A Monstrous Regiment is a book about women dressing up as men to be in the army. Most of them are pretty uncomplicatedly women. 2 of them I strongly feel are lesbians, but I can't explain why without you having read the book. The sergeant of the regiment that they're in has this really sweet moment at the end of the book where it's revealed that Sergeant Jackram has a child, and the war is over, so it makes sense for him to go back home and like be with his son. There's this really tender moment with the main character where the main character is like, well, you don't have to go home and be a woman. You can go home and be a decorated war hero who is a man. It's really, I felt very emotional reading it.
Oh,
But it's never actually stated that, like, Jackram's is a man. It feels very much like Terry Pratchett is flailing around at the idea that maybe you can be, have boobs, but actually live as a man.
crazy.
And, like, I really respect that because, again, this book is from 2003.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes subtext and tender dialogue is all we get. Would you recommend this book?
Oh, I would highly recommend this book. I have recommended this book to, like, 4 different people already.
Monstrous
It is
Regiment.
Called Monstrous Regiment. It is completely
I-
standalone. There are, like, a lot of Discworld books, which intimidates people. You don't need to know anything about Discworld, I promise. It's just a fun semi-fantasy book.
What were you gonna say, Judah?
Oh, I was gonna say we need more trans characters, I feel like, in sci-fi and fantasy. Like the lack of just like, especially sci-fi and fantasy, you would think that this would be a genre that would be like dominated by
Because you can
queer
have
folks.
like you can shape your body.
Yeah,
like,
you could like
'cause-
shape your body, like even I don't know. I just think it's interesting that like there's not a lot of like openly queer characters in sci-fi and fantasy. Because like it's literally sci-fi and fantasy. You can do whatever you want, and you mean to tell me there are no queer characters?
there should be a planet of just trans people in every book. That's how
Yeah.
I feel. Like, damn. It's so funny. Oh my God, not to bring up She Who Must Not Be Named, but that's like why a lot of trans people, when Harry Potter was so popular, like trans people like gravitated towards that world because it's like the only world they knew of where they could shape who they are, which makes it even more ironic when she's like, no, don't do that. I hate that, actually. I'm actually going to spend money to make sure that doesn't happen. So, yeah, like we mentioned last time, queer people who are nerds, write books with queer and trans people in them, please.
Please,
Pretty
we
please.
need somebody who's not.
Hey,
I
we'll
feel-
feature you on Out. Send us an email if you have a new book that you think is good. We'll read
Please.
it and we'll review it. And then,
Also, Tiny Ghost Press, who unfortunately I did not finish the interview for a multitude of reasons. They actually do have books
Ooh.
that are coming out that do include. There's one book that has a non-binary character. Let me look up the name real quick.
yeah,
so-
Tiny Ghost Press is like an independent
they're-
horror
yeah.
YA publisher that reached out to us.
They're more like supernatural.
Supernatural?
Yeah, they described me as supernatural. Although we did talk a lot about like horror elements and how we kind of all gravitated towards like horror or like things that had like supernatural paranormal elements in them.
Mhm.
But yeah, so Tiny Coast Press is an independent queer publisher, one of the very few of its kind. They do post a lot of books. I think the one with a non-binary character is called My Name is Magic by Zan Van Ruyen. Forgive me if I'm messing that up. But yeah, they basically make books that are by what I'm assuming are by queer folks for queer folks. But yeah, I want to read My Name is Magic. I have not had the chance to read it. I'm hoping it's a little bit better than the Alpha Sun. But
It's okay. It's a book that they recommended you to read, and they didn't like it very much.
Oh,
I
no.
did not
But
like
hey,
it.
the publisher's just starting out. You're gonna get a few.
Yeah, you're
it's
gonna
okay.
get, yeah, you gotta let it
It'll play out.
yeah, it'll play out the way it does. Sorry, I did not mean to detract
No, you're good.
from
I just because I want to hear. I think two things we need to hit, just like last time we wanted to hit Euphoria and The Last of Us, Hannibal and Good Omens. But before we get into that, because I feel like that's going to take up the whole time, I wanted to give just a couple brief, which is funny because I talk a lot, ones that I like, so that this is like a positive thing before we get into the complicated Hannagram territory.
What good territory it is.
Show that I think is really good and like fuck, it was canceled. Generation with a plus instead of a T on HBO Max. One of like the best representations of queer teenagers I've ever seen. It's a very like sexual show, not in like Euphoria, but like sex is like, you know, there's nothing explicit or anything, but like just like teenagers do, like teenagers are sexual, and I feel like it's a really realistic portrayal of how teenagers go about sex. There's an asexual lesbian character who has a story arc about how she doesn't know why she's like not into another one of the, I think she's bisexual characters who's like really into her physically, and she's like, I really, really like you. I can't do this. And then like she realizes that she's asexual. We have
Sex Education has a similar storyline where there is an asexual character and she's kind of like questioning, why am I not into the people around me like that?
And it would be hard too, because in Generation everybody is sexual. Like that's the whole thing. And she's like, I don't. She's very quiet and reserved and all this stuff. And she's like, I don't know how to deal with this. That character also has a transgender aunt who's like a big character in the show. She's like the supportive mom for everybody. And when one of the characters is having a hard home life, she like lives with the transgender aunt in their home. There's Chester, who is on the promotional image I did for this podcast, played by Justice Smith. If you played The Quarry, he was, I think his name was Ryan in the Quarry video game, but he's like an unapologetic gender nonconforming fashionista gay person, and like absolutely embodies like what being visibly and openly and loudly queer is, and I absolutely love him. He's also very vulnerable. There's a very complicated relationship he has with the school counselor because he's never had positive attention from a man. And the school counselor, like, it's not doesn't turn into like an inappropriate relationship between a counselor and a student. It's like a student having to come to terms with like his underdeveloped brain doesn't understand why this is wrong, and the counselor has to like tell him like, I can't, like, I need to separate myself from you because this is not like, it was nice seeing like a person, an adult in a teen show that is responsible and doesn't like stray the kids in the wrong direction. So that's just a few examples. There's one if I have about that character. There's no trans characters in the main cast. There's a brother of one of the characters who shows up once. And there's an openly homophobic girl who has gay parents, and that's kind of the joke. She's like homophobic. And I'm like, we have her, but not a trans character.
I mean,
like
you'd be kind of surprised.
Yeah, I know, for sure. Like it's realistic, honestly, that
but yeah,
they're all in the GSA together, and she's in there too because she has gay dads, but she's homophobic.
Your local GSA.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one critique I have. If it was to continue to a second season, which unfortunately it didn't, I would want to see like a trans character because there was a lot of like, I'm gay, I like dick, I'm a lesbian, I like vagina stuff, and I'm like, oh, let's even though they're high schoolers, we should
let's
still
mix it up a little.
Mix it up, make it a little spicy. And then another one I just wanted to mention briefly, sort of a very realistic portrayal of like immigrant families and being trans misogyny affected, being non-binary in an unaccepting family, parental growth and being supportive. Beautiful show. I love it. I really
like Sort of a lot, mostly because it is complicated. It's a complicated show, and I love complicated queer characters. I was saying this the last episode, but I think it's awesome that we're getting complicated queer characters.
Yes, so good.
That don't necessarily follow like this assimilationist view that a lot of queer folks still feel like we need to like be.
And the main character is actually trans, like in real life. So that's. And I think, I don't remember if their name is Bilal. I don't remember what the last name is, but they're awesome, fantastic actor. And then, this is funny, when they came out as Benoit Blanc in Knives Out being gay, before the second movie came out, he what's his name? Daniel Craig was like, obviously Benoit Blanc is gay. And I'm like, obviously? What are you talking about?
No,
and then in the second movie, watching Glass Onion, I'm like, yeah, obviously he's gay. So... The gay representation, if you want to call it.
I thought it was kind of cute
fun,
how they did it, though. Like, the way they revealed it in Knives Out.
Yeah,
like, I thought that was super cute. Like,
and, like, they have, like, his boyfriend Philip open the door in, like, Glass Onion, and it's so funny. And that movie's just very fun overall. It's a very Eat the Rich movie, so you should definitely see it if you haven't already. But yeah, that's my goods. And then I did want to mention, just so that it doesn't get lost, I'm going to be meeting Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard, who were the original Billy and Stu in Scream from 1996.
Oh my God.
And
I would like to meet Matthew Lillard.
Was that at con?
This is at the... Okay, if you want to meet those two, bunch of actors from The Walking Dead, House of a Thousand Corpses, a bunch of the Leatherfaces.
We're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored, but go to CreepIE Con. It's in the Inland Empire. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Yeah, it's $30. It's a bit. Oh yeah, it's a bit far away from where we are at UCLA. But if you live in the Inland Empire, it's at the Ontario Convention Center. And I have to say, a lot of gay people go to horror conventions, and if they're not gay, they're alternative. So it's the next best thing. But I have to say, Billy and Stu, and they make jokes about it because Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream, he wrote all of them except for 4, I think, is gay. So, like, they make jokes about, like, Billy and Stu being homo-repressed in the second movie, and I'm like, those men are gay. I have a sticker on my laptop. I have a sticker on my laptop that has the two of them in their iconic scene with like over each other's shoulders. And I'm like, it says bromance on it, but we all know, and that was made by like a gay, small town weirdo. He's a gay horror artist. So that's what I wanted to mention. But shall we talk about Hannibal or Good Omens? We can start with Good Omens if you want, because I know
Omens
you two.
Is a very light one to start with, and I really do like Good Omens.
Oh, I really like Good Omens.
But this was the conversation we wanted to have surrounding like queer baiting versus queer subtext.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who are on the camp that, you know, Good Omens was queer baiting, which is not necessarily true, because I think, and I'm taking a course on Neil Gaiman right now, we were talking about how their relationship is a little bit more, it's not based around sex, which is nice, you know, because I while sex is not necessarily a bad thing,
that's the only thing a lot of us get.
That is the only thing a lot of people really see in regards to like queer media. So it's actually like honestly kind of refreshing to have characters that aren't like all over each other or making like the whole living room uncomfortable.
Like, wow, those two angels are like fucking in the living room right now. This is really awkward.
Like, but yeah, no, their relationship is very chill, very like calm down. But yeah, definitely not queer baiting at all. I also think people lost the plot of the definition of queer baiting, like quite literally. Because everything is queer baiting now, even when it's not like.
I feel like at some point queer baiting had its meaning distilled to relate to like people's personal feelings.
Yes.
I feel like at some point people went, well, I really ship Aziraphale and Crowley, but they didn't kiss on screen.
Their dicks were not out on screen, so I don't think they're gay.
They're dicks that they definitely have.
Yeah, the genderless angels. I heard you mentioned like a difference between the book and the show too, right?
Yeah. So in the book, I think they fixed it a lot with the Amazon adaptation. So in the book, there is Aziraphale being gay is kind of played as a joke. Like there's a little girl who literally calls him like the F slur.
Fucking 5-year-old girl. She's like, I know what you are.
Yeah, like the homophobic dog.
Oh my god. Meme. Okay. You better not be listening to this. I went to go speak to our operations manager today, and he has his little dog that's always in the office. And they're always like, pet the dog. He's friendly. Go to pet this fucking dog. And he starts barking at me and like nipping at my hands. I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't know the dog was a homophobe. So I left because the only other interaction he's had with a member of OutWrite is Jackson, and he hates Jackson too. So coincidence?
Wow. I think not.
Wait, but
Isn't okay. I don't know, but I guess the dog is not.
Oh, fair.
The dog is not gay and homophobic.
The dog is not gay and is super not gay, meaning he hates gay people and can sense when we're around. Maybe that's why everyone in the Daily Bruin office gives us dirty looks. They're like, that dog hates these people, and I don't know why. But yeah,
anyways,
like the fucking dog.
Back to Good Omens.
LOL.
Back to Good Omens.
I don't know if in the book they make it the relationship between Aziraphale and Crowley as obvious as they do in the adaptation. I think it's a little bit harder because the book moves really fast. The adaptation kind of takes a little bit longer. So like they have like a whole cold open that's basically, I think in episode 3, just basically detailing their relationship from the beginning of like creation, like Adam and Eve, to like the present.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like their relationship kind of mature over time. And it's pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, fellas, is it gay if you ask your angel best friend to run away with you to avoid the end of the world?
LOL.
Like,
no, it's not actually. I think you're wrong. No,
It's not.
it's not gay.
Nope. Not. Not
Never, a gay man has never yearned. He is only fucked. That is the only thing a gay man can do. /S for anyone wondering. /J, not
J.
/SRS. That reminds, because you mentioned the end of the world, that reminds me of the Umbrella Academy. And Klaus in the Umbrella Academy, I like his gay representation. He makes me happy. I like
Didn't
Klaus.
they, when Elliot Page came out, they also changed one of the characters?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
reflect
just,
that.
yeah,
They're
they,
yeah, he's trans.
and then he like comes out in the show and the family's like, oh, cool. And it's like, and like, there's a point where, you know, one of the, because there's like fucking 8 family members or whatever. So one of them is like, who the hell is Victor? And he's like, oh, like he's a guy now. And he's like, oh, okay, I just didn't know. Like he misgenders him because he doesn't know. And then it's like
Yeah.
a very realistic correcting situation. And it's never like a thing again. He has like a heartfelt conversation about it with the sister character. And then it's like, yep. And that's so nice. And Klaus and his tragic relationship with a guy when he went back in time and fell in love with a man from the Vietnam War, and then he died, and that's so fucking sad.
So sad.
Umbrella Academy is very good. It gets iffy the last couple seasons. The final season's coming out.
Oh,
I don't know
dang.
when, but they're doing a
Wait,
final
the third
season.
season came out?
Yeah,
When?
right? Is it 2 seasons or 3?
I don't know. I have not.
The last,
Watch
whatever the
Umbrella
latest
Academy.
season is out, but the final one isn't. But
Okay.
that's good. Did you watch the one with Victor coming out?
No.
Okay, well then that's it. So
Okay.
it's season 3. Yeah. But yeah, that's good. Shout out to Elliot Page. Negative shout out to everyone who said Elliot Page should play Ellie in the Last of Us show. I'm like, that is a 40-year-old man. No, we're not doing this. Also, he like almost sued Naughty Dog because Ellie looked so much like him back in the day. But yeah. So last on our list in our last 10-ish minutes, Hannibal.
That one's controversial.
Controversial, and I
Controversial
learned
for
some
sure.
information from Lorelli, who is another one of our writers today, of apparently some like things that the creator of the show said. He said like the main characters are gay when they're drunk, and like the queer female characters. I think they were referencing Alana, who is like another psychiatrist who works with the FBI in the show. That in the book she was like a very like butch styled like character, like a very strong woman, and then they like made her being in like a femme for femme relationship, like kind of sanitized her queerness. I don't know much about the backstory. I do know that are you gonna watch the show, Judah?
Probably not.
Okay, well, spoiler alert for a show that's been out for 10 years and has been all over Tumblr for those 10 years. These 2 men die in each other's arms falling off a cliff after, like, murdering the final villain of the show together in a last act of perseverance and bond between them. So, like, it feels like another queer subtext / queer bait. I don't think Hannibal is queer baiting because like I don't know.
It's
because
hard.
like he has sex, like both of them have sex with women in the show. They both have sex with the same woman in the show, not at the same time, but it's like a whole there's actually an orgy in the show. No. But like Will like has a relationship with Alana, who I mentioned, and then Hannibal has a relationship with Alana. And Alana starts to turn against Will because Hannibal, if you didn't know, is a manipulative cannibal.
You can tell because his name rhymes.
Yeah, dude, whoever wrote those books, there's no way that wasn't supposed to be a joke, right? They're like Hannibal the cannibal. But
Okay, but
Yeah.
you just reminded me. So there's another show that I think is a really good comparison to Hannibal that
Mhm.
actually does what Hannibal was really scared to do. Killing Eve.
ooh, yeah,
Killing Eve.
my parents watched that.
I watched it. It's really good. Sandra Oh does such a good job.
When doesn't
Yeah, but
Sandra
it's
Oh do a
essentially the
good
same.
job?
Literally.
It's the same concept. You have this Sandra Oh plays like an investigator for the MI6, I believe, which is a British intelligence program. and she's trying to figure out the murder because of the string of murders that happened.
The murders.
And she's trying to figure out these murders, and the actual assassin. Then you figure out that it's actually an assassin named Villanelle, who is like hired to kill all these people. She's not a cannibal, but
She is a mass murderer a
She-
little
Her
bit.
name does start
she
with
is an
villain, and
assassin.
you'll never guess.
Oh my god. These
Um,
people are on a roll.
But yeah, they actually go the whole. They commit to Villanelle. Sorry, spoilers. They commit to Villanelle's and I can't remember Sandra Oh's character's name. Eve.
Oh.
Right, it's called Killing Eve.
Yeah.
Duh.
LOL.
Oops. They commit to Villanelle's and Eve's relationship. They
That's so
actually
good.
like straight up just commit to it.
And that show did not get canceled. It ended naturally.
Yes.
But I heard that the ending was bad.
Oh yeah, it's like I heard Bury Your Gaze. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen the ending. I've not watched the new season. If there is a new season, I think the last season I watched.
I think the last season already happened.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
didn't-
finished
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
while.
I didn't watch the last season. I think I stopped at season.
I think there's 4 seasons?
Yeah, I think I stopped at season 3.
Hey, you know what? It's good up until the potentially bad ending that none of us
Yeah.
know about. So
I don't know what the ending is.
you can
so I
watch the
can't-
first 3 seasons.
my whole thing is at least they committed. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a Hannibal situation where they kind of were
Where they like stare into their
Yeah.
eyes for long periods of time. And okay, one thing about Hannibal, which my roommate will attest because he was laughing his ass off every time I said this, is like nobody speaks like a normal person in Hannibal.
Oh, but I love
this
it.
is not like a queer critique. I have never
This is just an obnoxious.
I have
critique.
never seen people speak like this in real life. They speak in poetry. He's like in therapy and they're talking in metaphors.
It's so good, though.
Oh my god, it pisses it
I
gets
love
under
it
my
so
skin.
much.
I'm like, you know what you could do to avoid this situation? Not using a metaphor. You could just, instead of talking about how you're knee deep in a lake fishing somewhere as a metaphor, you could talk about your problems, Will. But
If someone talks directly about their problems in a show I'm watching, I will go, this is boring, and leave.
we are the two different types of people. People who
I'm
hated him.
kind of in the middle of this. It depends on the show
Yeah.
for me. Like the language should be simple if it's a show that is simple.
Midnight Mass, can't stand it.
I have not watched Midnight Mass.
Fuck,
I have
it's
not
the
even
same
heard
thing.
of Midnight
And
Mass.
I keep mistaking Midnight Mass for Midnight Gospel,
Mm.
which are like two different shows.
There's also Midnight Club,
oh, also Midnight Club.
who's
too.
by
Why-
Mike
why are
Flanagan.
there-
Yeah.
Why are there so many midnight shows?
I'm writing an article about those shows for my internship, and I'm like,
Ooh.
I told I was pitching today, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try my best not to do my opinions because Midnight Mass was so fucking boring. Because I hate emotional monologues that are like really, really long, like genuinely like 4-minute monologues of just people talking, and I'm like, great, where's the vampire guy? That's who I'm interested in. But speaking of MI6, I watched No Time to Die, which, first of all, if you like action movies, it's the latest James Bond that came out a couple years ago. Very good movie. Very sad in the end, but
Was it in fact Time to Die?
yeah, I don't know. But Daniel Craig's what's it called? James Bond is very, very good, and his last few movies have all ended tragically. So,
Cool.
but in that movie, Q, who's like the nerd character, who makes all the gadgets and stuff, is revealed as gay. In one line where he says, someone's coming over and he's not going to be happy that you're here. And the actor, who I think is gay himself, spoke up about how he's like, I wanted them to do more than just say the he pronoun to say that I'm a gay
Yeah.
character. And I honestly love when like actors speak up about how it's like not their fault. Like they're like, I
Yeah.
advocated for this to be better, and all I got was
a
this.
lot of people place the blame on actors and
Mhm.
not on the showrunners themselves, like for being this way. Like controversial opinion, because I'm gonna talk about Velma right now, and I know people were pissed about it.
Oh no.
Mindy Kaling was getting so much heat, but Mindy Kaling, like, she was not the one who wrote the show. I think she's on like on a producer credit, but she did not. So the person who wrote the show was some guy who's like a nepotism baby. I can't remember his name.
Fucking classic, of course.
But I'm like, y'all are not giving this heat to this white man who wrote the show.
Yeah.
Y'all are giving so much heat to Mindy Kaling. Like, not to defend Mindy Kaling because she also signed off on that show, but I'm like,
Let's share the blame.
yeah, let's share the blame a little bit. Let's like talk about, you know, the actual writer of the show. And also because a lot of people were also smearing like the animators too.
Like they didn't do anything.
Like, the animators can't do. The animators are just there to animate.
They will get fired if they speak up. They're low employees.
It's like it's a really difficult like situation to be in when you're like when you have to like speak up about, you know, your queerness and defending it, or even like worse, being blamed for queerphobia when it wasn't like necessarily like your fault.
Yeah. And to end how we started, similar example in AMC's The Walking Dead, where another character who I will, Tom Payne, who plays Jesus, who is also going to be at CreepIE Con convention, not sponsored. He left the show because, one, he felt his character wasn't being utilized. Like, there's comic books and that the show is based on. And he's like, why didn't you just fucking read the comic books and make that into the show? You made me a useless character. But also he's queer, explicitly queer in the comic books. He actually has a relationship with one of the bigger gay characters, Aaron, which that doesn't happen in the show. But we learned that Jesus is gay. Oh no, a conservative's gonna blip that and say, we learned that Jesus is gay. In like an episode, he's like talking to Maggie, who's one of the big characters, and he says, you know, I used to live this life of, you know, having a job and a boyfriend, and then he like knowingly looks at her for a second, and then like that's it. That's his gay representation. And he spoke up and was like, this fucking guy who wrote this episode couldn't give me more than just saying that I have had a boyfriend in the past.
Well,
and he's like, I in a show that has explicit queer representation, why couldn't you like apparently a lot of fans missed it. Like he then talked about being queer on the show, the character being queer, and they're like, what are you talking about? Because they just like missed it. It was just like a tiny little detail. But yeah, actors speaking up is good. What were you gonna say, Judah?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think a lot of people are still uncomfortable with queerness on the screen.
Yep.
Like, regardless of how far we've come, I still think we need to like go farther, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like there are sort of a lot of limits on the types of people who are allowed to be queer on screen.
Yes.
And the types of things they're allowed to do, which I don't love.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm so excited to see Ellie be a lesbian in the Last of Us TV show. So fucking psyched. But we're at our time, so is anything else you two want to mention, or should I get into my little ending blurb?
I did actually want to talk a little bit about Hades, because Hades 2 is coming out, which I'm very excited for.
Ooh, sure.
And I really enjoy how the game handles bisexuality and polyamory. It's handled, I feel, in a very natural way for a game that didn't have to let you date both of the romance options at once.
Oh, you can do both of them.
Yeah, you can do like 2 romance options. You can date both of them at the same time. You have like a conversation about how you want to have your polyamorous relationship. Spoiler for this game, kind of. I'm not telling you who they are, I guess. But I thought it was handled really well. It made me feel very cozy, which is not something I expected from a game when I don't play games that often.
That's good. Play Hades.
Play Hades.
And play the second one. Hopefully there's more gay people in it.
Hopefully there's more gay people in it.
But
and
yeah.
like some of the same gay people.
That's it. Don't kill the main gay people.
All right.
But yeah, you can follow OutWrite on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at OutWrite Newsmag, and check out our articles on OutWriteNewsmag.org. That's right spelled WRITE. I have been Christopher.
I've been Judah.
And I have been Jake Yu.
And we'll see you next Thursday for the next episode of Speak Out. Thank you all so much.